Hello and welcome back to another Cookie Tech video. So today I'm going to be showing you on how to add drag cuffs into your Roblox game. So if you don't know what that is completely fine. I'm just going to load into Roblox Studio testing mode where I'll show you how. Okay, so here we are inside of Roblox Studio testing mode. You can see I have the cuffs tool in my inventory. Keep in mind it will be rank locked. And these cuffs basically come in really handy inside hotel games, cafe games, and all of these other places, as it allows you to create a security role. And essentially, let's just test it on this dummy. We're going to walk up to him. We click anywhere on his body, so you can click on his head, his torso, his feet. Let's click on his feet. And there you see. Now he can't move, but I can move him around. I can jump with him, and to let go of him, I can click anywhere else on the screen. And you can see, there he goes. We can try that again. Let's walk a bit further. We click on him. He goes in front of us. And we can walk around with him. Super easy. And then we can let go. So keep in mind this works for R15 and R6. So that's super useful. And I know lots of groups need this. So I'm glad that I'm finally coming out with this. So now I'm going to show you how to make this system. And we're now going to head over to Roblox Studio. Okay, welcome to Roblox Studio. We're going to start off by clicking on the base plate icon. And we're going to start off, as usual, by organizing our Explorer. So to organize our Explorer, we're going to start by using a few folders. So we're going to head over to the replicated storage directory. We're going to click on the plus symbol, and then we're going to add a folder. And I'm just going to call this folder arrest system, just like that. Typo there. We can edit it. And then next of all, we're going to add a folder inside of our arrest system called model. And keep in mind that all scripts and model for this video can be found in the description down below. So everything you see in this video can be downloaded in the description down below, including the cuffs model and all of the source code to the scripts. So next of all, we're going to click the plus button, and we're going to add another folder, and we're going to call this folder model. And then we're going to start off by inserting a few remote events inside of our arrest system folder. So we can close our model folder, we don't need that open, and we'll click on arrest system, and then we're going to click plus, and then we're going to type in a remote event. Oops, I accidentally did a remote function. Make sure you do not use remote functions. Make sure you do remote events. And we're going to start off by calling this first remote event anti-reset. And then after that, we need to duplicate it. So to duplicate it, you can either do Control D or Command D if you're on Mac. And I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to call this arrest user. And then we're going to create another remote event. And we're going to duplicate that one. And we're going to call this release user. Alright, now that we've done that, I went to the video description and I downloaded the cuffs model. So what you can do is you can insert it or paste it into here. So I'm going to right click on the model folder. And I'm going to paste it into. You can see it's a tool, as it will be called cuffs. And we can close it, and you can see it disappears. And this should be our cuffs tool. And then now we're going to start off by creating a few scripts. So we're going to head over to serve script service. We're going to click the plus button, and we're going to create a script. I'm going to call this script, by double clicking on it, I'm going to call this script arrest mechanics. After that, I'm going to duplicate this with Control D or Command D on Mac, and I'm going to call this script cuff giver. And now after that, we're going to go down to started UI. We're going to click the plus button, and we're going to call this local script, and then we're going to call this local script anti-reset. Okay, now that we've done that, we're going to start off by scripting our cuff giver. So since we want the cuffs only to be given to certain members inside of our group, we're going to start off by defining a few variables. So we're going to say local group ID equals 0. Keep in mind we will edit this later on. And then we're going to say local min ID equals 0. Now, like I was saying earlier on, we don't want people who are not staff to have access to this tool. So we're now going to head over to roblox.com and then go over to the group you want to use. So I want to use the Cookie Tech group. So you double click on this number up here, you right click and you copy, or you do Control C. You head back to Studio, and then instead of having 0, you paste that number there. Next, we're going to talk about the min ID. So we're going to head back to our browser, And this time we're going to click on the three dots and we're going to go to configure group. So let's say we only want people who are moderator or above inside of our group to have access to the tools. So we're going to go on roles, and you can see we have all of our roles here. Now I want only people who are moderator or above to have access to these tools. So we're going to click on moderator, we're going to copy this number 2, and this means any role above moderator, such as admin, developer, or owner, will have access to the tool. And if your rank is below moderator, let's say player, which is beneath the number 2, you will not have access to the code. So let's head back to our Roblox studio, and then let's replace this with the number we just copied, and that was 2. Great. So now that we've done that, we need to do the rest of the code. So basically, we need to make sure that only if you're above that rank, you have access to the group. So to do that, we're going to start off by typing game.players.playerAdded, connect function, then we're going to get the player. And this means when a player joins, do so and so. And then we're going to say if player, which we defined above, get ranking group ID, so we're getting their rank inside of this specific group, is bigger or equal to minimum rank. So if it's bigger or equal to, or we put min ID here, then we're going to wait 5, and then we're going to duplicate or clone our tool inside of replicated storage inside of the player's backpack. So to do this, we just say local cloned underscore tool equal game.replicatedStorage.rssystem.model.cuffs clone. So now we're cloning this cuffs tool, and then we're going to say cloned tool dot parent equals, and then player dot backpack, and there we go. So now this script will make sure we only get the tool if we have the correct rank to do so. Next of all, we're going to move on to our anti-reset code. Now let's say when the player is cuffed, we don't want them resetting because we don't want them to escape the cuffs. So we're going to start off by saying local started UI equals, and then we're going to put game get service started UI, so we're getting the started UI service, and then we're going to say local replicated storage equal game get service replicated storage dot arrest system. So now we're basically inside of the arrest system directory. We're going to drop another line, and now we're going to get the anti-reset remote event. So to do this, we're going to say local anti-reset, and then we're going to say equals replicated storage wait for child, and then anti-reset. Now we have the anti-reset remote event. We're going to drop a few more lines, and we're going to say anti-reset on client event connect function. And now basically this is saying when the anti-reset remote event is fired, do, and then we're going to make it do started UI set core, and now we need to hide the reset button or disable it. We're going to say reset capital R button capital B, and then callback with only a capital C, no capital for B. Make sure you do it like this, and then we're going to go one to the right, we're going to put a comma, and then we're going to get a status, and then inside of our function brackets, we're just going to press status. So now we can get status passed through when we fire this event. Great, we basically now have the anti-reset local script done. And now we can move on to the handler, which will run the cuffs tool. So we're going to head over to cuffs, and now we're going to insert a local script inside of our cuffs. So we're going to click on this plus button here, and then we're going to click on local script, and I'm going to call this local script handler, and this local script will basically run the tool. So how this script works is it detects when a player clicks somewhere, and if they click on a target that is a player, it'll fire some remote events that will make something on the server make the player get cuffed. So we're going to say local replicated storage equal game get service replicated storage dot arrest system. So now we're inside of the arrest system directory, which we can set up here. Now we're going to drop a line. Now we're going to get the players. So we're going to say local players equal game get service players. And now we're inside of the player service. And then now we're going to drop a few lines. And then we're going to say local tool. And this is the script.parent tool. So it's equal script.parent. And you can see the parent of the script is the cuffs tool. So now we are at the correct tool. And since we're in a local script, to get the client, all we need to do is local client equals players.localPlayer. Simple. Now we've got the local player that is in control of the tool. Now we're going to get the player's cursor by saying local cursor equal client. Now we're going to do colon get mouse. And now we've got the cursor. And the cursor is basically your mouse. You can see the white thing on my screen that I can move around. And now we're going to drop a few lines. And then we're going to set a boolean. And that boolean will be local somebody arrested. And then we're just going to set this to false for now. But of course, we can set that to true if we want to. And now we need to get a few remote events. So we need to drop a line. And now we need to say local arrest user equals replicated storage, wait for child, arrest user. So now we got the arrest user remote event. Now we're going to get the release user remote event. So we can say local release user. I'm just going to put a capital so it's clearer. Equals replicated storage, wait for child, release user. Now we have the release user remote event. The final remote event we need to get is the anti-reset remote event. So we're going to say local anti-reset equals replicated storage, wait for child, and then in here, anti-reset. Great, so now we have all of our remote events. We need our script to actually do something when the tool is equipped. So now we're going to do tool.activated. And now this basically detects when the tool is held in the player's hand. Then we're going to say connect function. It's going to drop a line. And now we need to get the target that the cursor is pointing to. So we're going to do this by saying local target equal cursor.target. So we're going to say cursor, which we defined above, dot target. And now we're going to say if target. So if there is a target, and the reason we say if target is, let's say the cursor is pointing at the sky. The person may be pointing somewhere, but it's not exactly a target, is it? And then we're going to say if target then. Now we need to detect whether the target is a humanoid or not. And to do that, we need to say local victim equals target.parent find first child humanoid root part. Now, we can detect whether something is a player or not by checking if they have a humanoid root part. This is unique to a player, and the reason we use the humanoid root part is because this will work with R6 and with R15. And now we're going to say, if victim, so if there is a victim and somebody is not currently arrested, then we're going to make sure that the script knows that somebody is arrested. So we're going to say somebody arrested equals true. And now we're going to say arrest user. So we're going to fire the remote event that tells the script. So we can do this by saying arrest user, fire server, and then we're going to pass the victim, which we defined above. Great. Now we need to actually make the code that handles whether someone is being released from the cuffs. So to do this, we can say else if somebody arrested is true. So if somebody is currently arrested, then release user fire server, so we can release them. And then somebody currently arrested equals false. Great, so now we've got the handler done. We now need to do the hard part, which is coding the server script that will handle all the release requests. So it may be a bit complex, but I think you'll be able to do it. So we need to head over to our arrest mechanics, and we're going to start off by defining a few things. So we can actually go back to our previous script now, which is the handler, and we can copy a few things from here. So we can copy line 1. So we're going to select this entire line. We're going to right click, we can copy. And we can replace this print statement since we don't need it. We can paste this in. And now we can copy all of our remote events in, which was those 3 lines, Control C. Leave a space just so everything's a bit more cleaner. And then we're going to paste in all of these. Now we're going to start off by making a function that will actually fire an anti-reset. So you remember how we made this anti-reset script, which will prevent the reset button from being visible. We're just going to make a function so it can be easily called inside of the serve script. So to do this, we're going to say local function anti-reset f. Now we're going to set it to f since we already have something called anti-reset, just standing for function. And then here we're going to put player instance. And then we're going to put the status, and we can set the status to true or false to indicate whether the button should be visible or not. So true meaning it will be visible, false meaning it won't be visible. Now we're going to drop a line, and then we're going to say anti-reset, fire client, and then player instance, and then the status. Now we need to make the code that will release the user. So we're going to do this by dropping a few lines, and now we're going to create the local function release user f, and then in here we're going to get the player. And now we need to make the script that will release the user. So we're going to do this by saying local player2, which is the person who's being arrested, equals player dot character dot humanoid root part dot cuff weld dot part 1. When we arrest the user, we'll create a cuff weld. You'll see later on the script how we do that. And then we're going to get player 2 by checking who's been welded to who. And now we're going to say local p2 instance equal game.players find first child p2.parent.name. And now we're searching the players folder to see if there's a child called the name of the person who is currently arrested. Now we're going to drop a few lines, and now we're going to say player.character.humanoid root part .cuff weld destroy. So now there'll be 3 to move. And also in the script later on, we make it so that they can't walk, and we also make it so that they weigh nothing. So we're going to mess around with the physics a bit, and we're going to create a for loop, and we're going to say for iv in I pairs p2, so that's player 2 dot parent, and then after that we're going to say get descendants do, and now we're basically getting the descendants of our p2, which is a player 2. Then we're going to say if v is a, so if this part is a mesh part, then we're going to drop another line, and then we're going to say v.massless equals false, so that means they will weigh something again. And now we need to go 2 down, and then we're going to drop a line, and now we're going to say p2.parent.humanoid, make sure you do capital P's for your parent, .humanoid .walk speed equals 16. And once again, later on in the script, we make it so that they can't move. And then we're going to say p2.parent.humanoid. And this time we're going to make sure that they can jump by saying .jump power equal 50. And then now we drop another few lines and we say p2.parent.humanoid.platform stand. And basically platform stand immobilizes a user once more again. Later on in the script, we define this as true, meaning that they can't move, but now we're going to make sure that they can move, so we're going to set that to false, so it's not enabled. And now the final thing we need to do is we need to make sure that the reset button is usable. So we're going to say anti-reset, and then we're going to put F, then we're going to close it, and then in here we're going to put P2 instance, the thing we defined above, which is our player 2 instance, and then we're going to set it to true, so yes, the reset button can be used. Great, now we need to work on the system that will actually arrest the user. So to do this, we're going to start off by typing arrest user, which is the remote event we defined above, .on server event. Now we need to say dot or colon. Now we need to say colon connect, then function. And now in here, we're going to put player and victim. So we're going to get the player that sent the request and the victim, who is the person who's going to be arrested. Now we're going to drop a line, and then we're going to say local player instance equal game.players find first child victim.parent.name. So now we're getting the player instance of the victim. Now we're going to say local P1, which is the person trying to arrest somebody, and we're going to set that to player.character.humanoid root part. Once again, we're using the humanoid root part, so R6 and R15 work together. And then we're going to say local P2, so this is player 2, the person who we want to arrest, and we're going to simply set this to victim. Now we're going to drop a few lines, and now we're going to create an offset. when we want our player to be cuffed, we want them to be slightly in front of us so we can see where they are. So when we cuff them, we want to make sure that they're in a certain position. And to create this offset, we're just going to say local offset equal vector3 dot new, and then in here we're going to put 0, 0.015, so that means there'll be 0.015 studs above the air. Then we're going to put comma, and then we're going to say -5, so they're going to be 5 studs in front of us. And now we need to actually apply this offset, so we're going to get the victim's C frame by saying victim.c, then capital F, and then frame, and then we're going to say equal p1.cf frame times c frame dot new, and then in here we're going to put our offset, and now that will basically apply our offset. Now we're going to drop a few lines, and now we need to create the weld constraint. So this will make sure that our player is locked in place and can't move around, and that us, the person who is arresting someone, can control that person. So to do this, we're going to simply create a new constraint by doing local new constraint equal instance dot new weld constraint. And now we've built a brand new weld constraint. We can drop a line. Now we're going to say new constraint dot parent equals p1. So the person who is in control will have the first weld parent. Now we're going to say new constraint dot part 0. So part 0 that will be welded will be P1, which is player 1. And then part 1 of the constraint will be player 2. So that will now be connected up to player 2. And now we're going to call new constraint dot name equals cuff weld. And we'll basically just give it a name so we can easily reference it. Make sure you don't use a double equals. Make sure it's a single equals. And now we're going to drop another line. And we're going to say P2 dot parent dot humanoid dot platform stand equals true. And now platform stand basically immobilizes the user if it's enabled. And now we're going to edit the walk speed. So just in case that doesn't work, we're going to make sure that they can't jump or walk. So we're going to say victim dot parent, or actually to save some time, let's copy this from up here. You see these two lines, 23 and 24, right click and copy. Then we're going to remove this. Then we're going to paste it in. And now we're just going to set these two numbers to 0. And now that means the player will be completely and utterly immobilized. And now we need to make sure that the user weighs nothing. So we're going to make them massless. This means it'll be super easy and smooth for our player to move them around. This, we can basically copy the code from up here. Once again, we're kind of reusing the code up above. And then we're going to right click, we're going to copy, we're going to drop a line, and then we're going to paste in that code. But this time, instead of having v.massless equals false, we're going to set this to true. And now we're going to drop a few lines, and we're going to call our anti-reset function. So anti-reset f, and then here we're going to put our player instance, followed by false. So that means their reset button can't be used whatsoever. And now we're going to do print arrest, and this is optional. We don't need this print statement here. Just in case there are a few bugs, we'll keep that, but I don't think there's a bug, so we're going to remove that. Of course, we can always put that back if there's a bug. And now the final thing we need to do is release user dot on server events. So when the release user remote event is fired, connect function player, and then we're going to say release user function, and here we're going to pass player. Great. So that should be the entire system done. Now, one of the most important skills in making systems like this is testing them. So let's test that by pressing F5 or pressing the test symbol up here. Now let's wait for it to load in and then see what happens. So there's nobody in our testing thing. To save time, as I don't want to test it with a thread, and I'm going to add in what is called a dummy or just a rig, which will simulate as the user. Of course, you can always create this as a game and test with your friend, but just to save some time, I'm going to insert a rig. If you're going to use a rig, make sure you unanchor it, of course, as players are normally unanchored, rigs aren't. And then once again, let's test that by pressing F5 or clicking this play button, and let's see if everything now works. You can see we get our cuffs tool. Let's click on our dummy. And there you go, we're in control of them. We can move around, super easy to move them since we made them massless. And great, everything now works. So there's one more thing I want to say before I end this video for today. If you have any issues with this script or any of the systems that just don't want to work, head over to our forums on forums.thecookie.dev, create a brand new post by clicking on the new topic button, creating a scripting support post, saying what your issue is in the title, and then basically list your issue with the output. Then click the create topic button, and then myself or another scripter will come to your aid and help you. But that's all from me. Thank you for tuning in.